I remember a time when I used to wake up every morning feeling like I was already behind. The alarm clock would go off, and before I could even take a deep breath, my mind was racing through 100 unfinished tasks. It felt like I was chasing time, like 24 hours just wasn't enough for me. No matter how hard I tried, the days kept slipping away, and so did my dreams. I thought maybe I wasn't working hard enough, maybe I needed more energy, or maybe I just wasn't destined to succeed. But then one day I realized the truth. Successful people don't have more hours in a day than I do. They have the same 24 hours. The only difference is how they choose to use them. That realization hit me like a lightning bolt. I finally understood that time is the greatest equalizer. It doesn't care about who you are, where you come from, or how much money you have. Whether you're rich or poor, educated or uneducated, everyone gets the same 24 hours every single day. The real difference between success and failure, between fulfillment and regret, is not the amount of time we have, it's what we do with it. I want you to imagine this. If you could learn how to manage your 24 hours like the most successful people in the world, how different would your life look? What goals could you finally reach? What dreams could you finally chase? This is not about working harder, it's about working smarter, with purpose, with intention. In this journey, I will share with you the powerful time wisdom that transformed my life, inspired by Earl Nightingale's teaching. And it all begins with exposing one dangerous myth, the illusion of busyness. For years, I lived inside that illusion of busyness. I used to fill my days with endless tasks, answering every message, saying yes to every request, attending meetings that didn't matter, and running around just to prove to myself and to others that I was working hard. And yet at the end of the day, I would collapse into bed wondering why I still hadn't moved an inch closer to the life I wanted. I was exhausted, but I wasn't fulfilled. I was busy, but I wasn't productive. I remember one particular day when I worked non-stop from sunrise to midnight. I had checked off nearly every item on my to-do list. But when I sat back and asked myself, what did I actually achieve today? The answer was painful. Nothing meaningful. None of those little tasks brought me closer to my big goals. It was like running on a treadmill, sweating, moving, and struggling, but never actually going anywhere. That's when I realized being busy is not the same as being effective. Busyness is a trap. It tricks you into believing you're making progress, when in reality, you're only burning energy without direction. And the sad truth is, many people spend their entire lives trapped in this cycle. They mistake activity for achievement, and they confuse motion with progress. I had to make a choice. Do I want to live the rest of my life looking busy, or do I want to start actually creating results? That question changed everything for me. Because once I stopped chasing the illusion of busyness, I started searching for the real drivers of success. And that's when I discovered one of the most powerful principles in life, the principle that only a small part of what we do creates the biggest results. Some people call it the Pareto principle. I call it the 80-20 rule, and it became the turning point in how I began to manage my. When I first heard about the 80-20 rule, I didn't believe it. Someone told me 80% of your results come from just 20% of your efforts. At first it sounded too simple, almost impossible, but when I looked closely at my own life, I was shocked. It was true. A small handful of my actions were responsible for almost all of my progress, and the rest was just noise. In school, I realized that only a few study techniques gave me the best results, while the hours I spent memorizing useless details brought me nothing but stress. In my work, I noticed that just a small group of clients or projects created most of my success, while the rest drained my time without real return. Even in my personal life, I saw that a few key habits, reading, exercising, reflecting, were shaping who I was becoming, while countless other activities just kept me distracted. This principle opened my eyes. I had been wasting so much of my 24 hours on things that didn't matter. And I asked myself, what if I could focus only on the 20% that really counted? How much faster could I grow? How much sooner could I reach my dreams? That's when I started filtering my choice. Every task, every meeting, every commitment had to pass the test. Is this part of the 20% that brings real results? Or is it part of the 80% that just eats away my time? But here's the challenge. Even when we know what matters most, Life has a way of distracting us. People pull at us, opportunities knock, and our schedules fill up. That's when I learned another powerful truth. Mastering time isn't just about focus, it's also about courage. The courage to say no. And that lesson changed my life even more than the 80-hour. One of the hardest lessons I had to learn was the power of saying no. For the longest time I thought saying yes to everything made me a good person. If a friend asked for help, I said yes. If a coworker wanted me to take on more work, I said yes. If someone invited me to an event, I said yes, even when deep inside I knew I didn't have the time or energy. I thought I was being helpful, but in reality I was slowly destroying my own priority. I remember a season in my life when I was juggling so many commitments that I barely had a moment to myself. My goals sat untouched. My health began to suffer. I felt drained, not because I lacked ability, but because I had given away my time to everyone except myself. And then it hit me. Every time I said yes to something unimportant, I was saying no to something important. My dreams, my health, my future. That realization shook me. I began to understand that saying no is not about being selfish. It's about being wise. My time is my most valuable resource, and if I don't protect it, no one else will. So I started practicing it. At first it was uncomfortable. Saying I'm sorry I can't commit to this right now felt like I was letting people down. But soon I discovered that people respected me more when I respected my own time. And even when they didn't, I realized that my future was worth more than their momentary approval. Learning to say no gave me freedom. It created space in my 24 hours for what really mattered. It gave me clarity, energy, and control. But there was still another enemy lurking in the shadows, one that wasted just as much time as busyness and people-pleasing. It wasn't outside of me, it was inside of me. That enemy was perfectionism. Perfectionism was my silent killer. For years I delayed my dreams because I kept telling myself, it's not ready yet. I'll start when the time is right. I would spend endless hours polishing small details, rewriting the same lines, and planning every step so carefully that I never actually took the first step. I thought I was being responsible, but in reality I was stuck. My pursuit of perfection had turned into procrastination. I remember one project that I wanted to launch, a simple idea that could have changed my life. I kept waiting for the perfect design, the perfect timing, the perfect confidence. Months turned into years, and the opportunity slipped away, all because I was waiting for perfection, something that never came. That experience taught me a painful truth. Perfection is an illusion. It doesn't exist, and chasing it only wastes precious time. The people who succeed are not the ones who wait for perfect conditions. They are the ones who act, learn, and improve along the way. I realize that done is better than perfect. Action, no matter how small, is more powerful than endless preparation. Because once you start, you can grow. Once you launch, you can learn. Once you take a step, you can take another. Progress, not perfection, is the real secret. Letting go of perfectionism freed me. It gave me permission to move forward with courage, even when things weren't flawless. And with every action I took, my confidence grew. I learned that mistakes are not failures, they are lessons. Each one makes me sharper, stronger, and wiser. But as I began taking action, I faced another challenge. My days were still chaotic. I had energy, I had courage, but I didn't have structure. I needed a system that could help me manage my 24 hours with clarity and focus. That's when I discovered one of the most powerful tools I had ever used: time blocking. When I first started taking action, I thought that was enough, but I quickly discovered that without structure, my days still slipped through my fingers. I would wake up motivated, dive into my work, and by the evening I would look back and realize that the most important things had somehow been pushed aside. That's when I found a tool that changed everything: time blocking. Time blocking is simple, but it is powerful. Instead of keeping a long, overwhelming to-do list, I began assigning specific hours of my day to specific tasks. For the first time, I wasn't just hoping to finish something sometime today. I was giving it a clear place in my schedule. For example, I dedicated my mornings, when my mind was fresh, to deep, focused work. Afternoons became the time for calls, meetings, or lighter tasks. Evenings were for reflection, learning, and personal growth. I even blocked time for rest, exercise, and family. Suddenly, my 24 hours stopped controlling me. I was controlling them. I remember the first week I truly committed to time blocking. At the end of each day, I felt a sense of calm I had never known before. I wasn't running in circles anymore. I wasn't trying to do everything at once. I was giving my best energy to the tasks that mattered most. And I had the satisfaction of knowing that even if my day didn't go perfectly, the essentials were completed. Time blocking also taught me something about myself. I used to waste huge amounts of time jumping between tasks. By training myself to focus fully on one thing at a time, I accomplished more in 2 hours than I once did in an entire day. It was like unlocking a secret superpower hidden inside my schedule. But there was still a problem. Even with time blocks in place, I noticed how easily small distractions could break them. A quick glance at my phone, a meaningless conversation, a sudden urge to check email, and before I knew it, an hour was gone. That's when I realized the next battle I had to fight. Protecting my time blocks from the constant attack of distraction. Distractions were my silent thieves. Even after I discovered time blocking, I realized how fragile those blocks were. One notification on my phone, one scroll through social media, one meaningless conversation, and suddenly the time I had carefully protected was gone. I used to tell myself, it's just 5 minutes, but those 5 minutes always turned into 30, and those 30 became hours. Slowly, I realized I wasn't losing time in big chunks. I was losing it in small leaks. I remember one particular morning when I had set aside 2 hours for an important project. I was determined to stay focused. But then my phone buzzed. I checked one message, then another, and before I knew it, almost an hour had disappeared. The work sat untouched, and I was left frustrated. That day, I promised myself that I would stop letting small distractions steal big opportunities. So I began treating my focus like treasure. I turned off notifications, put my phone out of reach, and created an environment where my mind could stay clear. At first it felt uncomfortable, almost like I was missing out. But soon I felt something I hadn't felt in years: freedom. My mind was sharper, my energy stronger, and my results multiplied. The truth is, distractions don't just waste time, they weaken our willpower. Every time we give in, we train our minds to chase the easy over the important. But when we guard our focus, we build discipline, and discipline is the foundation of mastery. Still, I had to learn another important lesson. It's not about one big burst of focus or energy. It's about what we do every single day. Consistency beats intensity, and when I finally embraced consistency, everything about my 24 hours changed. In the beginning, I thought success was about working harder than everyone else. I believed if I could put in long hours, push myself to the limit, and give everything in one massive effort, I would win. But every time I tried, I burned out. I would sprint for a few days with incredible intensity, only to crash and lose all momentum. That cycle kept repeating, leaving me frustrated and drained. Then I began to notice something. The people who were truly successful weren't sprinting. They were pacing themselves. They weren't relying on bursts of energy. They were relying on consistent habits. They showed up every day, whether they felt like it or not. Their secret wasn't intensity, it was consistency. That realization shook me to my core. I remember when I first applied this to my own life. Instead of trying to read an entire book in one night, I committed to reading just 20 pages a day. Instead of working out for 3 exhausting hours once a week, I worked out for 30 minutes every morning. Slowly but surely, those small, consistent actions started to compound. And before I knew it, my life began to change. Consistency is powerful because it turns small steps into unstoppable progress. Earl Nightingale once said, "We become what we think about." And I found that to be true, because what we think about shapes what we do every single day. Success doesn't come from one giant leap. It comes from the daily steps we refuse to skip. And that brings me to one of the most important realizations of all. Every day we live, every 24 hours we're given, is not just time, it's life itself. And how we use it determines the legacy we leave behind. There came a moment when I finally understood that my 24 hours are more than just a schedule, they are the building blocks of my legacy. Every day I live is a deposit into the future I am creating. Every hour I waste is a piece of my life I can never get back. That realization was heavy, but it was also freeing because it gave me the power to choose differently. I remember sitting alone one evening, reflecting on how I had spent the past year. Some days were filled with distractions and regret, while others were filled with discipline and growth. Looking back, I could see clearly that the days I managed my time well were the days that shaped me into someone stronger, wiser, and closer to my dreams. The wasted days were gone forever, but the intentional ones became stepping stones to the life I wanted. That was the moment I promised myself I would stop living casually and start living deliberately. The truth is, none of us know how many 24-hour gifts we will be given. But what we do know is this: each one is a chance to build something that lasts. When I choose to spend my time on growth, love, contribution, and purpose, I am writing a story that will outlive me, and you can do the same. Your 24 hours are not just about surviving, they are about creating meaning. So the question becomes, how will you use your next? Will you let them slip away in distractions and regret, or will you turn them into a legacy you can be proud of? Because once you grasp this truth, you'll never see a single day the same again. And that brings me to one final challenge, a call to transformation. My friend, your 24 hours are your greatest gift. They are the one resource you cannot buy, borrow, or earn back once they are gone. I've learned this truth the hard way by wasting time on distractions, on perfectionism, on pleasing others, and on meaningless busyness. But I've also learned that when you guard your hours, when you focus on what truly matters, and when you choose consistency over intensity, you can create a life of extraordinary purpose. Earl Nightingale once said, "Success is the progressive realization of a worthy goal." That means success isn't just a destination, it's what you do with your time every single day. If you spend your 24 hours chasing what matters most, success is not a question of if, it's only a matter of when. Every decision you make, every block of time you protect, and every habit you commit to becomes part of the future you are building. So here is my challenge to you. Starting today, take control of your 24 hours. Identify the small 20% of actions that give you the biggest results. Say no to the distractions and demands that steal your energy. Stop waiting for perfection and take action now. Block your time with intention. Protect it with discipline. And above all, live each day with consistency, knowing that each hour is shaping your destiny. Because the truth is, time will not wait for you. It will pass whether you use it or not. The question is not whether you have enough time, you do. The real question is, will you use it to create the life you were meant to live? The answer lies in your hands, in your choices, and in your next 24 hours. The time for transformation is now.